This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. Here's your host, Corey Tusick.
This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. On today's episode, I interviewed Javier Bastardo. Javier, you can find his Twitter account, but he also runs, it's in the show notes, but he also runs Satoshi in Venezuela. He's down in Venezuela, and he does an educational platform for people to learn about Bitcoin in Venezuela. So that's what the Satoshi in Venezuela is. But I also wanted to talk to him, just to kind of see what it's like down there right now. And we had some, interesting things to talk about, especially with El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender. He had some thoughts on that, and also got to understand a little bit of what the experience of the hyperinflation in Venezuela is like, and how the Bolivar has been basically destroyed. And so we had a good conversation about that, and we talked a little bit about what the comparison of the fluctuation in Bitcoin price is like. Everybody talks about how volatile it is, but the volatility compared to the Bolivar is nothing, or the prices that he's paying for goods and services is nothing. So we had a good conversation. If you want to reach out to me, my Twitter handle is @BitcoinSimply. Also, my personal Twitter handle is @TusickCorey. And you can email the show, bitcoinmadesimplepodcast@gmail.com. Hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. How it runs up the coast. But I had we represented a movie that was up for an Oscar. It was from Chile. And it featured the Patagonia, and it was just beautiful. It was wonderful. So I've never been to South America, and I definitely need to make it there, because it looks incredible. I think it's one of the only continents I haven't gone to. So anyways, I just appreciate you coming on. I wanted to, I forget exactly how we might have been on the same Twitter thread or something. And I started following you, and I'm like, oh man, I got to talk to this guy, because you have one of the best perspectives, I probably think, for what's going on in Bitcoin. So if you could just give the audience a little background on in yourself, how you got into Bitcoin, and everything you're doing with the Satoshi in Venezuela.
Perfect, and thanks for having me, Corey. It's a really great pleasure to have this conversation with you. Well, my name is Javier Bastardo. I'm from Venezuela. I'm living in Venezuela. Many Venezuelans flee the country. I'm still in Caracas. I started in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in that moment in 2017. In January 2017, I started to work as a journalist in a known Spanish media named cryptonoticias.com, and that was my early beginning in this industry. At the end of 2018, starting 2019, I also started to work with Cointelegraph en Español. That is the Spanish version of Cointelegraph. And almost at the end of 2019, I left Cryptonoticias, and then I started Satoshi in Venezuela. That is a Bitcoin-only educational project. As I said, I started writing about cryptocurrencies in general, but as I passed my learning curve, I became a Bitcoin-only guy. So Satoshi in Venezuela is a Bitcoin-only educational organization. We started making meetups in Caracas and in other cities around Venezuela, because as many of Bitcoiners are tempted to think, I used to think that Venezuela was kind of Bitcoinized, that if I go to other cities, I will find other Bitcoiners and stuff like that. But that's not the case. And because of the pandemic in 2020, we migrated every activities that we are doing. Those meetups that I started to focus them in Caracas, were migrated to digital formats. we started making Zoom rooms or GT calls or stuff like that. And as the level of the conversation was really high, because I have few years learning about Bitcoin, and the people that I invited to talk with, the audience, the people that was participating in that kind of activities was really intelligent, and the conversation were really smart. So I launched a podcast that is the same format of those conversations, but it have evolved in the meantime since I've been working on it since last year. The podcast have already more than 100 episodes. I interviewed Andrea Santonopoulos, people from Samurai, Matt Odell, Peter McCormack, Stefan Libera, and also many of the Spanish speakers, Bitcoiners that are the focus of the project. And that's what I'm doing with Bitcoin. And I think that Bitcoin could be helpful for everybody, but you need to learn some things before you find it useful. And if you don't spend some time trying to figure it out how you can use it, you will probably say that it uses too much energy, or that it is oiling the oceans, or any narrative that you are comfortable to. But if you take the time to learn, and you can make this process through the learning curve, you will see how important these things that Satoshi gave us is.
Yeah, I agree. So, that would be some good advice for Elon Musk to listen to. He should, go through the learning curve, because it's something that I was on a Twitter Spaces the other day, and Will Clement pulled me up on stage, and I didn't, like, I don't know, I don't have advice to give, because I'm here learning, like, I'm so new to it. So, but I mean, even then, like, just starting a podcast and even talking about it to other people, like, I waited a couple years before, like, I researched it for like probably a year and a half before I even spent money on it. And then whenever I finally put money in, I waited like 10 months before I even started talking to like family members about it. I didn't want to, because there's just there's too much to learn, and it's like, right now I feel like I'm 1% of the way there. There's a long way to go. So I wanted to ask you about what's it like in Venezuela at the moment? I know that inflation is kind of out of control, and people often talk about, point to Venezuela as one of the examples of why Bitcoin's such a big use case. So can you talk a little bit about what's going on there and the current situation?
Okay, well, Venezuela is living through its 5 year of hyperinflation, maybe 4 year of hyperinflation. So it is the second most pronounced period of hyperinflation in the human history. And it is obviously the first time that we are facing this kind of crisis. So Venezuela used to be a really quote unquote rich country, because we have a lot of oil. We had pretty good connections with the global market economy. But as the Chavismo won the elections back in 1998, and we have more than 20 years of that nightmare, the economy simply collapsed, because they have a model that can stand the long term, because I think that they think that the oil will be the main product in all the markets forever, and they build really populist and kind of communist model, economy model, that they are trying to help the people and something like that. But the things that they have to do or had to do in the past to help the people are costly. You have to pay for those things, and when you don't have the money to pay, how you can still making the same things, and how you can still having the same politics that you had. So they started to print money as hell. I don't know if they definitely don't understand how money works, but they tended to think that they could control the internal economy of Venezuela just with the bolivars, and that will be useful to how they hold the power. And obviously, this led to people to try to flee to another currency that could store better the value in the long term. That is the dollar, obviously, not Bitcoin as the main currency, but the dollar. And the dollarization of the economy that back in the day was just a dream. Like, we had a kind of strong economy. We had a good moment with the oil exchange between Venezuela and other countries around the world, and the state had been have been receiving a lot of dollars, and had in that moment the possibility to finance those social plans and all the populist narrative, and the people were really happy having money and having TVs, having, I don't know, everything that you can imagine that a populist will give you to maintain your favor, to maintain your vote. And as the oil price goes down and the economy kind of migrated to another kind of model, more digital, more techy, those are the things that are moving the world right now. The oil moved to a second place, and also the internal industry of Venezuela to exploit those oil reserves is in the ground. So the economy is collapsed at the state level, and in the individual level, as the money, the Bolivar, loses all its value, and we are trying to migrate to that other currency that is the dollar, or could be Colombian pesos, or could be Brazilian reais. It depends if you are near the borderline. The dollar has become like the standard, like the money that we are trying to use, the money that we are using to price things in our market. But this is going in a de facto way, like we are the people that are using the dollars to avoid the destruction of the Bolivar, but the state, the regime, the Chavismo, didn't make anything to help this process to be smooth, to be more easy, because for an ideological perspective, to a communist regime to lose the money control to the United States empire that they are trying to fuck every time the Venezuelan people and stuff like that. It can be done. Like, they can't just dollarize and say that we lose to the states. So the scenario is really critical, because all this is like the theoretical things that are happening, but when you go to the markets to buy food, the prices change almost daily. Prices change weekly, like 20-30% in bolivars, obviously. So if you have dollars, if you can live through a dollar standard, or even like my case, but I lost my keys in a boat accident, so I can sign my transaction. Yes, but you can also live through a Bitcoin standard. If you are that privileged, you will be nice in Venezuela. But if you're living through a Bolivar standard, your individual economy is linked to that. You will see how prices skyrocket weekly, almost daily. That you will find even problems to find some kind of things, and also health care and stuff like that are really, really expensive. So people could die from hunger. People could die for I don't know, like a cold. And in the context of the pandemic, that is another level of the crisis. We have this economical collapse in the theoretical and in the practical way, like 80 or 85% of Venezuelans have less than $40 a month. So $40 a month for 85% of the peoples that are living in Venezuela. So it is nice to be part of the 15, but I am seeing people eating for the garbage. I'm seeing people having problems to raise their kids. I'm seeing kids dying. So you can separate your own self to the situation that your country is living through, even though you could have some kind of economical stability using dollars, living through the de facto dollarization, even living through Bitcoin. It is really hard to see how people is simply having trouble, having really deep troubles because of the regime and the populism that led us to be how we are today. And also, you have this competition of different monies through the Venezuelan reality, because as I said, if you are near to the borderline, you could use the money of the neighbor country. Like if you are near to Colombia, you probably will transact instead in dollars, you will transact in Colombian pesos, Brazilian reais, euros, dollars, and also Bitcoin is through the many different monies that are competing. But in the case of Bitcoin, we have more like Matt Albers used to say, that Matt Albers from Useful Tulips. He said that we have some kind of rails, of value rails, from which we use to move money around the region, because the destruction of the economy have made many people to flee the country, and now we are a country of migrants. Many Venezuelans are around around Latin America, but also in other countries around the world. So many people that are working in the remittance business are using Bitcoin to connect those Venezuelans abroad with the internal economy of the country. So it is a kind of bittersweet sensation, because we see that we can solve some problems with this technology, that we can take advantage of what Bitcoin offers to the individual, especially to the individual, because I don't have any hope that we can change the government. The regime have all the power, so we need to be safe in a very individual and personal way. So I think that Bitcoin could help in that way, but again, almost 85% of Venezuelans are earning $40 a month. So how can you think in learn about Bitcoin, and, as we said previously, spend the time to learn about Bitcoin, go through the learning curve? It is hard to see that will be the path that we will be walking, but at least that's what I'm trying to help doing Satoshi in Venezuela and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. So the 85% of the people live on $40 a month.
And there are in that 85%, there are people that earn even less than that money.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people that are living really, really, really bad times right now.
Now, how does that look compared to, like, if we have, if they're transacting in the Bolivar compared to the US dollar, are the prices all over the place, or if you're using the dollar, is it more stable?
Well, the transactional economy of Venezuela is almost dominated by dollars, like almost the 60 to 70% of transactions are doing in dollars. But the Bolivar still being the main currency because it is the one that have the less problems to use as payment methods. And you also have the problem that as we depend on the United States monetary policy and also the financial services that you can use to spend or even to hold dollars, like Cele. Cele is really popular here in Venezuela. I don't have it. I solved all the problems with the bitcoins that I lost, but it is really popular here. Cele, this kind of dollar tool that you can use, but there are many problems to spend to transact in dollars because it is a foreign currency. It has its own problems expanding in the internal economy of the country. So you could find some places where all the prices are set in dollars, but you also will find prices in bolivars, and you will see how easy it is to spend the bolivars because nobody wants to hold the bolivars, and it is really, really easy to use. But you will find that many of the transactional economy is moving through dollars. That the merchant don't want to hold the bolivars through nine. Like I closed my business, and then I want to buy dollars or buy even Tether, USDT, or something like that. Because the internal market of Venezuela really, really want to have dollars. The demand of dollars in Venezuela is really high as the dollarization is happening. But the dollar, the Bolivar is still being the main currency. I almost use only Bolivars to pay for stuff. I don't want to pay extra to spend Satoshis because you can go to the market and pay your things with Bitcoin. Because I live in Caracas, and in Caracas you have almost everything that is happening in Bitcoin. And even though I have that option, I don't see that I want to extra pay for spend the Bitcoin if I can exchange some sats for bolivars and go and pay the price that things should be. So it is the competition of different monies. You will have to choose which you want to use in any case. Each case you will find useful the dollars or maybe bolivars, or maybe the people that are selling your good or services say, oh, I only accept dollars or only bolivars.
So then there's nothing like the Lightning Network infrastructure there similar to what El Salvador. I know that Strike is, just setting that up there. So that would be when you could start using paying in Satoshis.
Yes, because the payment
On-chain
processor
fees,
that
yeah.
no, but the even though you can find some times when you can pay little fees on chain, the payment processor charge you a fee over the fee that you have to pay in the on-chain, and also the payment processor fee. Like you will end paying like 10% plus, so it don't make much sense to spend the sats.
How does the volatility of Bitcoin look in comparison to the volatility of prices of things in Venezuela?
Like a blessing. Yeah, because the Bolivar volatility is always negative. So you, in 1 week, you can, let's say you have $10 in Bolivars, and it could be like, as the prices of today, it will be like 3.2 million Bolivars. But if you hold the 3.2 million Bolivars through a week, you could find that by the end of that week, you will be buying like $8, maybe 7.8 if you are lucky, just in 1 week. So if you have another currency, you have another asset that you can use and hold through a more long term, like holding Bitcoin through a month, and you see that it could have a drop like the one we are facing, like 50%, but after a rally of almost 300%. So it's like, okay, I get it. I do prefer to hold the Bitcoin, and the Bolivar is almost losing its value against the dollar almost every time. Daily, debasing like 0.5%, even 1% daily.
Daily. Yikes. So it's that bad. Hang on a second here. I got to help my son with something real quick.
Yeah.
What do you need help with? Do you have your headphones plugged in? Yeah. What are you trying to watch? What are you trying to watch? Okay. So that's on here. Here, turn the volume up that way. There you go. Okay. Sorry about that. Thanks.
Oh, no problem.
So the volatility of Bitcoin, like nothing for you.
Nothing at all, because my currency is losing value daily. So even when Bitcoin could enter in a bear down trend and the bear market and stuff like that, I could make the best trade in humankind history, like is to buy Bitcoin with Bolivars. So I will get that every time that I could do it. It is losing it's like this is Jameson Locke a quote, like he said that Bitcoin is not a quick rich scheme, but getting poor less faster that you could do. It is my case totally, because Bolivar is losing its value daily, and Bitcoin could have those kind of phases too, but it is slower in losing its value than the Bolivar.
That's crazy, because I mean, the Bitcoin price is so volatile, and to think that just your currency is more volatile than that's unbelievable. And that's it's like heartbreaking for me, for the people that are in that 85%, you know, because how are they getting by right now? You know, I mean, if they're, living on $40 worth of bolivars a month, and the prices of things are just continuing to rise. I think I saw, wasn't it in April, it was 25% inflation. Um, you know, like you said, people are dying, like it sounds like it's just a really sad situation.
Yes, it's the destruction of the fiat model that we always said that fiat is bad for the people and everything like that. But when the people is living through that system and the system collapses, they will collapse with the system. If you can't adapt to the new reality that you're living through, like understand that you're living through a hyperinflationary context, you will collapse with your fiat currency. You will cry because you see the bolivars in a dumpster, something like that, and you will feel like the collapse of your money is your own collapse because you don't see to understand what is happening. Like it is the politicians' fault, not a thing that is cultural or something like that. Is a systemical failure that we are living through. So yeah, it's hard to see people living through that nightmare.
Mm-hmm. So then, whenever, I mean, are people? I guess that's what inspired. Is that what inspired you to start educating people more on Bitcoin? Is that really where your impetus to start Satoshi in Venezuela came from?
Yes, as I said, I was a writer, journalist. My background is in philosophy, so I'm always tempted to try to find the human angle of everything. And the more human angle of Bitcoin is freedom, like help people to conquer their own freedom. And as I thought that Venezuela was hyper Bitcoinized and stuff like that because of the narrative around the country, I started to think that maybe I should make something more than just writing about Bitcoin, like something more than just hanging on Twitter and talking with the plebs or talking with other Bitcoiners around the world, stuff like that. And in that moment, I realized that I didn't have the money to do anything like that, like how I could make these meetups or these little, say, these meetups, because I was working as a journalist, and journalism is not too good paid, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So I started to message people of Bitcoin, like Francis Puyol, send us money. Samsung Mo from Blockstream also send us money. Samurai Wallet, the crew of Samurai Wallet also send us money. So I started to see that the idea that I have, that maybe spread this experience that I living through, like having a tool that could help me to survive all the destruction that we are discussing in a personal way, and see the reaction of those guys that don't even know me, that maybe I could be a scammer and they send me money even when I could be just a scammer. And I saw that the idea that I was trying to make work and the reaction of them was like connected. Like, yes, I was doing a right thing. And that led me to simply continue,
Mm-hmm.
continue and trying to help the people, because as I said, my background is in philosophy. I'm not a techie guy. I'm not a cryptographer. I'm a Venezuelan guy. I have just a bank account, just one Venezuelan bank account. I don't have credit cards. I don't have, I don't know, like Cele or any bank account abroad Venezuela. I traveled outside of Venezuela twice, so I'm really, really Venezuelan.
Yeah,
And
you're rooted there. Yeah.
and so it doesn't make me special to use Bitcoin. And as I understood that, I saw that maybe I could share this experience with others that could adopt Bitcoin to solve their own problems. Because since we are living through the same context, the same economic collapse, we have facing similar problems, but in your daily and individual living experience, you will have to solve your own problems by your own, and that's what Bitcoin provides you. Like you have the freedom to move your money, move the wealth that you have as you wish, and as it is really liquid here in Venezuela, you could move any kind of money that you want to move. And as money is the like the motor of the man, like you can make anything that you want to make in the market with money, and you could opt to another system of money that is not collapsing as yours. It is a really clear opportunity. So every these ingredients, every these different things makes me just to continue doing Satoshi Venezuela. The pandemic makes me think that maybe we should stop the project, but then I realized that everything will move through the digital world, and in that a year ago, the podcasting and YouTube and stuff like that was not that really popular in Venezuela because we have internet connection problems.
Mm-hmm.
And as it was almost inevitable that we'll be more digitalized. And I saw that, well, I can continue doing the same things with the same purpose, but in a digital way, and I can reach even more people that I could reach when I was going to the cities, because it's really nice to go to the cities and meet new people in person, but it has a price. Like we have to spend money doing that, and also it could be problematic to move around the country because we have problems with the gas. We have the pandemic conditions that the police guys could brief you to let you go through. So yes, the idea is to help others to understand how they can use this for their own goals and anything else. I don't give a fuck if they buy Bitcoin. I don't give a fuck if they, I don't know, give me money. I'm not doing this for their money because we have another model. I make ads for Bitcoin companies in the YouTube channel, so I can make things move without spending my own money.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need the people that I'm trying to connect, that I'm trying to show how Bitcoin could be useful to get money from there. So it's not for the money in this case. It's just for spreading, yes, and spreading something that is really useful. Because I'm a living example. I don't like to use myself as an example, but if I could use Bitcoin and understand what it is and take all this advantage, I think that any other Venezuelan could do it.
Mm-hmm. And so it's really, it's kind of amazing to see, and I'm sure your reach has grown because compared to doing, because you have like each of your accounts have 10,000 followers roughly on Twitter. Has that grown exponentially since you've digitized everything and gone from the city meetups?
Yes, the digitalization of every activities that I made obviously made my Twitter account and Satoshi in Venezuela account to grow because we are a really present brand in Twitter, in social media in general, and also in Europe. But I think that it is also the bull market that is helping us to grow a lot because it is as Bitcoin start to pump, and people start to see, whoa, I'm being leaving behind, and maybe I'm losing an opportunity there. Let me check how I can know. And as we are so present in social media, probably they would find us that way. But yes.
How many exchanges are live down there?
We have Venezuelan exchanges that, if you are listening to this, never use that shit. But we have international ones like local Bitcoin that was the dominating exchange back in the day, but we are Binance, the Binance. Binance is really big here right now. And you have also other alternatives like HODL or local cryptos. You have many global options, and you have those Venezuelan options too. But again, don't ever use that money laundering machine because you could be in troubles. Chainalysis is looking on some of those exchanges right now, so it could be problematic. Just avoid it.
Yeah sounds like it. And so it sounds like what you guys are experiencing is kind of like the modern day Weimar Republic. Is there a lot of similarities? I mean, are there people, I think people think it's a joke or like, oh, can't believe that actually happened, with like people showing up at the grocery store with a wheelbarrow full of money. But I mean, you even said, there's dumpsters full of bolivars. So is that kind of what your guys are seeing right now? Lots and lots of paper cash.
No, the Bolivar, the paper Bolivar is almost dead. We have a new money cone. Like we have new bills, but I I didn't touch a Bolivar bill like in almost a year. Every every all every each of our bolivars are digital bolivars. Like you will spend millions of bolivars, but just in digital. Maybe we are a really modern Weimar Republic because we don't have to go to the markets with the piles of bolivars, but you spend the same millions of bolivars.
Yeah. Well, how much is like a loaf of bread right now in bolivars?
Or almost a million, like 800,000 bolivars.
Wow.
One that is like 30 cents. But
Wow.
again, it sounds like it is cheap, but also take in mind that
You only have
there
$40 a
are,
month.
yes.
It's a shame. It's terrible. My eyes were really opened to um, you know, currency. I remember, I think it was in high school, and somebody gave me a Colombian pesos it was a $2 million bill. And like, I think I won it over like golfing or something like that. It was like, oh, if you have a better score, you get this. And so I got that. And in my mind, I thought, I mean, I know it's not as valuable as the US dollar, but like it's got to be worth $1,000, like $2 million in Colombian pesos. Um, and I took it to the bank and they said to exchange it, you're going to actually lose money. And I was like, what? And they said, yeah, the exchange fee on this is 50 cents. And I think it was worth like 35 cents, something like that. And that blew my mind. Um, and then, you see plan B with the 100 trillion, USD account. So how much did it cost a year ago, do you think, like roughly speaking? If it's
How much
800,000
what?
now, how much did a loaf of bread cost a year ago? If it's 800,000 Bolivar now?
I can't even remember because it is it could be as exaggerated, like it maybe goes in the order of the thousands, and it is now in the hundred of thousands. So the prices simply change at all that I can't even remember how much it was.
That's
And
crazy.
also, I'm living almost through a Bitcoin standard, so I could remember maybe in dollars.
Yeah.
Like I remember that I could buy the same bread for 20 cents, and now they are 30 cents. So you see that even in dollar prices, the prices are rising because the hyperinflation is not just about the base currency that you use in the market, but also the dynamics between the market things and the market agents that are participating in that. So even in dollars, the prices are rising, but slower at least.
Yeah. Do you think there's any chance that Venezuela has what El Salvador has at some point?
I hope no, because the regime is not really a freedom paladin or stuff like that, and they will take advantage of Bitcoin for themselves. And also because we have that pseudo shitcoin that is named the Petro, and
Hmm.
so they already have their own crypto project. So as I said with the dollars and United States, that it is an ideological issue to admit that they lost through to the United States, to admit that they lose trying to implement the Petro and going through a Bitcoin standard sounds really impossible to me. And also, they don't have like this interest in helping the people to have more freedom at all. At all, the
Hmm.
Chavismo is a disease that is trying to control everything, have the full control of everything in the country. So opening a door like Bitcoin could be really problematic and antagonical to their own goals.
Hmm. What do you think about the El Salvador news and um, all that kind of stuff? I don't know. Were you on that Twitter Spaces with the president the other night?
Yes, I was talking there in the early beginning because Nick opened it and said like, well, who is a Spanish speaker that is listening to us? And I said, well, I'm
Yeah.
here. I talk in Spanish, and I commented a little about this. I'm have been talking with Roman Martinez, that is from El Salvador. He works with Strike, and also Jorge Valenzuela that works with
Hmm.
Bitcoin Beach. They are Salvadorans and they are living in El Sonte. So it is really cool to meet them and to talk with them. So I can immediately understand what is happening in the ground from there, and also comparing to what happened in Venezuela, because the admission of a new legal tender as Bitcoin in El Salvador have a few similarities with the creation of the petro in Venezuela. Obviously, the key difference is that you have the Satoshi coin and then you have the Bitcoin. But the main idea is that the state is admitting this new kind of money to be through their own internal economy. Okay, and that's really cool, and I like it. And I said in the space that I am as bullish as all the gringos Bitcoiners, because this is good for Bitcoin, and I can concur on that. But also we have the other phases of the thing. Like Bukele is a populist. It is a really popular populist, but he is a populist. He is a millennial populist that is really connected with social media. You have him in a Twitter space. It is kind of really new way to use the tools that social media gave you. And he also lack on political career. He is a publicist. He made it through the presidency after being a mayor, if I am not bad, or a governor. One of those two charge was before he made it to the presidency. And as I said, he is really, really popular. So he can make things happen in El Salvador. And that's good. If you only think in how this could help Bitcoin to gain momentum in other countries, or in other countries, in other states. And that's nice, and I understand that. I like it. I want to see how that evolves. But again, the ways that you are having this adoption are not exactly as democratic as we can expect. Like they moved the bill through the Congress really fast, and they have the discussion really fast, and they have the super majority in the Congress, so they can make these things fast happen really fast. But the discussions around the bill, there are many Salvadorans that are saying that maybe this is not a really important issue at the moment, that they have other problems that could be more important for their own prosperity, for the good of the country. So it is kind of bittersweet to have this important and historic improvement of Bitcoin as a legal tender in El Salvador. That is really bullish. That makes me happy. Like I talked with Roman yesterday, and on my podcast, to know how he is living this. He is really happy, and the people that is in El Soldi are living through a dream, and many Salvadorans are finding this as a really good opportunity. But also we have to be careful, because we are almost cheering for the state. And Bitcoin is the separation of the money and the state. So that's kind of contradictory in some ways. And I like it. In short, I really like it. But I want to be careful, as I almost do with the Venezuelan crypto narrative. I almost say that we will be careful talking about that, because if we create too much expectations around what is happening in Venezuela in that moment, but now in El Salvador, and those expectations don't come through life, what will happen? People will say that, well, Bitcoin doesn't work and it doesn't help the people and stuff like that. really happy for El Salvador and Salvadorans, but I'm also make a call to be cautious.
Yeah. You want to be a little skeptical, because you don't want, like you said, anything. Sometimes things can get pushed through Congress really quickly and enacted, and it's a good thing. But if that can happen for a good thing, it can also happen for a bad thing. Bad things can get pushed through. And I guess you've seen the living example of what can happen when a populist takes over, and kind of rides that wave.
And also Chavez was as popular as Bukele in his moment, like 90% of popular support. That was Chavez too. I'm not saying that Bukele and Chavez are the same, but populist.
It's a cautionary tale. The one thing I do have hope wise with Bukele is that he's letting in something that he can't control.
And he know it. He said it in the Twitter space almost 3 times, that he understands that they can influence nor control Bitcoin as a monetary system. And I really like it that humble coming through people like him, but
you still have to, you have to be careful.
Politicians are to be doubt in any context, even though it could be your politician, the guy that you support, the guy that you love. They should be.
You should doubt everything they say.
Yes.
No, I said it. I've said it many times that I don't trust any politicians. I don't trust any media, and I don't trust any politicians. And that sounds like it makes me a very paranoid person. But I just think it's good advice to live by, and I trust family, and I trust friends that are like family, and that's pretty much it. You shouldn't just take people's word for, it's a really, I guess, dark way to look at the average person, but you have to think that way. It's kind of interesting to think about because I saw you had tweeted about it, or maybe made some comment on it, but Robert Breedlove last night, or yesterday, came out, shitcoining for BitClout, and that one really caught me off guard. Did not expect to see that, and I think that's kind of like maybe you could relate to this, because I've developed this. I don't know if it's a defense mechanism, but I'm like expecting everyone in Bitcoin to eventually turn on it. Like I'm like, Michael Saylor, it's great. I'm so glad he's in. And I just assume in my mind that everybody is going to turn on it. And at one point I'll be the only person left. And, so I'm just like really skeptical, I guess. Do you see anything similar with that, with like how people should be skeptical of politicians always, but like even, any influencers in Bitcoin, it's like we've seen a lot of them fall.
Yes, because Bitcoin kills the credentials. Bitcoin kills the heroes, and also make you to don't need to trust in anybody, because if you're running your node and you're validating the rules and you are validating that you have your UTXOs that are really Bitcoin, you don't have to do anything besides that. And that's a reality, but also we are part of a social layer of how Bitcoin evolves, that we are the quote-unquote community of Bitcoin around the world. And obviously, as a social phenomena, we'll have some of the Bitcoiners that will be more vocal than others, and that's really normal. But as Bitcoin don't really need those guys to be as important as they could be in the layer in the social layer. It is like indifferent who they are, what they're doing, and also the big cloud affair took me out of place too, because I started doing clubhouse rooms like in February, and I have a big cloud profile. I didn't give any permission to anybody to use that. I didn't create that. I hate big cloud, fuck that scam. And now seeing someone like Robert, someone that I do respect and someone that I work with because he works in Swan and I work with Swan too, it is really hard to see how something that I know that it is at least shady, yes, that is a scam, being like examined or something like that. I don't get it. But you know, as we saw many of the all idols of Bitcoin, like Mike Hearn in the very early days, this guy Kevin Andresen, Roger Beer, more near to our times, this Trace Mayer. You have many names. You have many names that you, even Samson and Jameson with the INX affair that they built that ICO on Ethereum. But well, you know, as you said, we are waiting everybody to turn around. So I expect you, Corey, will not ever keep going. I have to say that I was a blockchain believer when I first came to the space in early 2017. I I was very excited to decentralize everything. We will be ruling the world with the blockchain. But after you understand that this Bitcoin, that the tool to make those kind of things happen, everything lose importance. Like, okay, you can make your own decisions and your own investigation, but you cannot act like a naive person, like a naive Bitcoiner that like you don't know that a platform that requires you to spend Bitcoin to get the coins, the shit coins that through your wallet or something like that. Those kind of things are shady for anybody that have spent at least 2 years in the space. So
yeah, it's shocking to see. You know, and I made I pinned it to my Twitter profile because I ended up making it's basically like a click hole that I'll keep going forever. But it was whenever Chamath was basically becoming a shitcoiner, and I posted a picture of like Chamath on one side and Roger Ver on the other, and it said, "You either die a Bitcoiner or you live." You know, people have used that phrase, but I said, "You either die a Bitcoiner or you live long enough to see yourself become Roger Ver." And then whenever Elon started doing his FUD, I then just moved Chamath's picture over and put over Roger Ver's and put Elon's in, and now it says, you know, "You either die a Bitcoiner or live long enough to see yourself become Chamath." And then I saw Breedlove, and I was like, "Oh no, I can't. I'm never thought I'd be contemplating that." But what are your thoughts on what do you think his motivation is there?
I don't really know, because
I mean, to me, if he wanted to learn and truly do what he was saying, then don't put the link in to activate your profile, you know? Like,
and you can even do it in private. You may know a fucking ton of Bitcoiners that will help you if you want some help in doing an investigation through BitCloud. I don't know. When I saw my profile on BitCloud, I didn't tweeted the link
Yeah.
in my Twitter. So I'm almost tempted to say that if I acted like that, why you can make the same thing? Like, obviously, I don't have 100K. I don't know how much quote unquote money he have in BitCloud, but even when I could need that money, I don't will release that shit.
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting coming from, so you're a philosophy person, and it's coming from like, the Bitcoin philosopher, of like, you know, uh, it's just like if anybody was going to know about integrity, I thought it would have been him. Um, that one, I mean, actually, like, I was like stunned for like an hour. It's just like, no way. Like, there's no way. Um, so if Guy Swan ever goes the shitcoin route, then I'll know that it's all over. Because he's as have you talked with Guy before?
In some Twitter threads, and he also made me some recommendation on the mic I'm using right now, but
Oh yeah.
not. I didn't have him in my podcast yet, but maybe soon.
Yeah,
The voice of Bitcoin.
yeah, you should. He's great. And it was funny because we were in the Twitter spaces with the president, and one of the things that he talked to me about the first time he came on the podcast was how the night that him and his brother discovered Bitcoin was 2011, and he said they were up like all night till like the sun rose, just like drinking beer and talking about how it was going to change the world and it was going to revolutionize everything. And then obviously it was a very long road, but I texted him while we were in that chat, and I said, dude, this is literally what you and your brother were talking about. And he's like, I know. Like, I mean, it took 10 years, but here we are. So yeah, so we won't be seeing any Bastardo coins coming out.
No, I have a liquid token that is named shit. If you want some liquid shit, I could send you a little, but it is a joke to see how worthless a token could be. And no, I will never shitcoin because the the shitcoin incentive are really low to me because my shitcoin, my local shitcoin, died in my hands, and I choose to use Bitcoin instead of my local shitcoin. So I don't like shitcoins at all because I understand that they are kind of tools to make the fools lose money, but also to control those fools through a fiat model using some cryptography, using some blockchain and blah, blah, blah. But they are the same system that I'm avoiding, and the same system why I choose Bitcoin, so why I will
Yeah.
use or issue my own shitcoin. It don't make any sense. Maybe I could color some sats and say that is the Bitcoin Bastardo colored coin in counterparty, something like that.
Make some Casasius coins of your own. The so I gotta ask you, that down in Venezuela is football, or as we call it, soccer. Gotta ask a non-Bitcoin question. Is soccer / football the biggest sport? Or because I know Bastardo is a name that is very there's at least a handful of guys I can think of that played baseball with that name in the States. So I was curious, is baseball very popular there, or is it mainly football?
Historically, people says that baseball is the main sport in Venezuela, but if you walk the streets of Venezuela, you will see that we are a really soccer them country. Badly, we suck at soccer, and I don't know if we will be anytime in a FIFA World Cup. because we have all the worst enemies in the region: Brazil, Argentina, Colombia.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is really hard to compete with those guys. But in the streets of Venezuela, I'm 100% convinced to say that we are a soccer country. I was a player from my early childhood
Hmm.
until my late before entering to the college, and
Mm.
I saw different phases and different infrastructures around soccer that you could find around baseball too, but the soccer is more popular for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. In the so, and I know there's a lot of trying to think of the couple of the names, but I know there's some. So I'm sure baseball's popular there. But yeah, I assumed that soccer would be number one. Which it's pretty much that everywhere outside of the United States. In the United States, we just don't even care. We're just like, it's funny. It is interesting to me that something could be so popular around the
And
rest of the world.
the baseball thing in Venezuela is really deeply influenced by the relation that we had in modern Venezuelan history with the United States, like the oil camps that was like
Mm,
they had many United States engineers that came to the country to help to involve the oil industry, and obviously there was a deep influence on that perception, and that's why in the 90s and the 80s and 90s we had a really big generation of big leaguers that
yeah.
flee to United States to play baseball.
Well, that I was gonna say, the one that play. I'm from Pittsburgh. Our baseball team's the Pittsburgh Pirates, and we had Jose Castillo from Venezuela, and he was one of the guys that I think in 2018 died. They get carjacked. It was him. Let me look at it real quick. It was Castillo, Jose. It was in Venezuela. Um, he was playing baseball with. He was with Luis Valbuena, Carlos Rivero, and they were in a car in Yara. I don't know how to. Yeah, they were ambushed by highway robbers. I don't know
I
if you remember
remember
that.
that. Yeah, yeah. Not exactly all the thing, but yes, the that's the problem with a collapsing
Yeah,
country.
it makes people desperate. I just was listening to something where it's talking about like it's like somebody who interviewed a lot of terrorists and said that none of them are really like terrorists or want to be. They are desperate, you know. Um, so what's the like, are you able to leave the country? I'm very naive on the policies. Are you pretty much stuck
Yes,
in?
you can leave the country if you have your passport and you have the money to do it. I don't have the money, and my passport is just a year to pass.
Mm,
So I'm trying to save some money, but
it's a
to
shame that
be
you had
really
that boating
honest,
accident.
yeah, but to be really honest, I don't have any interest
Desire,
on
yeah.
flee the country because we have a lot of xenophobia around Venezuelans because
Hmm.
as we are facing a kind of diaspora of Venezuelans leaving the country, those countries that are receiving those Venezuelans don't have the means to maintain every new Venezuelan that arrives. And also the citizens of those countries find the Venezuelan migration almost dangerous. I don't want to be called names just because I'm a
Yeah.
Venezuelan.
No, I understand that. And I believe me, I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, and I'm like I've traveled the world for business and everything, and I still find myself here in Pittsburgh. It's like it's something about your home. It's like if it's your home, It's hard because my best friend and roommate from college is from Switzerland. Um, and like towards the end of college, it was just this thing I knew. I was like, he's just like me. He wants to go. He wants to be at home. He likes being in other places, but he loves home. So I think that's awesome that to be proud of, where you're from and rep that. We'll have to get together sometime and do a spaces. Because there's a couple other like podcasters I was talking to. I said we should just do a casual one. I'm going to call it Bitcoin and beers. I don't know if you drink. I don't know if you drink beer or if you.
No, I didn't do alcohol since 10 years ago
Oh,
because
wow.
I have a connatural hair disease. So I'm trying to live longer, and the
Yeah,
alcohol is a
doesn't
no
help.
to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I could do Bitcoin and water.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to be a drink, but the idea is to make it like a vibe, like just a laid back um vibe. So yeah, so we should get together sometime in the next week or so and do a spaces in the evening. But well, Javier, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you? Let people know where they can find you, learn more about everything you're doing.
Thanks a lot for the invitation, Corey, and thanks a lot for the people that are listening to our conversation. You can find me on Twitter. I live in Twitter.
Yeah.
My handle is Crypto Bastardo, but instead of a Y, like the Anglo word is with an
Yeah.
I, is with an I,
Okay.
like in Spanish, Crypto Bastardo is my last name, so Crypto Bastardo. And also, if you are down to know more about Satoshi in Venezuela, you can find Satoshi EN Visit LA.
Yep.
Satoshi EN Visit LA.
Excellent. Excellent. And what's the name of the podcast? Where can they find it? Is it everywhere?
It is Hablemos de Bitcoin that translate to Let's Talk Bitcoin, but they are Let's Talk Bitcoin podcast. They are not Hablemos de Bitcoin. The majority is originally in Spanish, but in English there are something named the same way. But you can find us in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, wherever you want. And I have another interviews with Nick Carter and Andres Antonopoulos in one that is named La Vida de Satoshi en Venezuela, that translate to the life of Satoshi in Venezuela.
Oh, nice. Nice. Excellent. Well, I really appreciate, I really enjoyed this conversation. And we'll have to do some spaces, but also I'll have you on again at some point because I love your perspective. I love what you're doing down there and keep teaching people. That's great.
Thanks a lot, Corey. I enjoyed a lot this conversation and hope to meet you in those spaces with coffee and Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah. And also, is that a PlayStation behind you?
No, it's just the television.
Oh, I thought I saw a PlayStation controller. So I was gonna say.
Yes.
Okay.
The control, yes. I use a computer. It is the control, but I use the computer.
Oh, okay. Do you play Call of Duty or?
No, just FIFA.
FIFA?
Soccer country.
Yeah. We'll link up on there because I love to play video games too. So, but all right. Well, thanks for coming on, Javier. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Corey.